Diddy's legal team is now claiming that the prosecutors coming after Diddy are racist and actually just jealous of Diddy being a successful black artist. Federal prosecutors have replied to this motion, and with a new $100 million lawsuit now on the way, it looks like Diddy is in for a bad time.
Sean Combs asked the judge in his federal case to throw out one of the charges. He says he's being targeted because he's a black man and the charge is rooted in racism. I look at Combs' argument and his chances of success. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Sean Diddy Combs wants one of the counts in his federal superseding indictment thrown out. Combs argues he's basically being singled out by federal prosecutors because of his race and his success in business. The charge he wants the judge to toss is count 3.
Lawyers from Diddy's legal team say that the law that is being used to come after Diddy has historically only been used on black people. The motion includes an extended explanation of how most of the cases where this law was used involved black people, and prosecutors are actually ignoring white people that are committing this same crime. Interestingly, pointing fingers at the prosecutors and saying that they shouldn't have come after you isn't really a valid defense.
Black men have largely been prosecuted using the Mann Act over the years, Combs' attorneys write. This case is unprecedented in many ways, but perhaps most notably and most disturbingly, no white person has ever been the target of a remotely similar prosecution. They go on to argue that the sex acts that Combs engaged in with the victims and the sex workers was completely consensual. The government has concocted a criminal case based primarily on allegations that Mr. Combs and 2 of his longtime girlfriends sometimes brought a third party, a male escort, into their sexual relationship. Combs' lawyers continue. Like many other celebrities, Mr. Combs has had complicated relationships with significant others, as well as with alcohol and drugs throughout his time in the spotlight. But that doesn't make him a racketeer or a sex trafficker. The attorneys also argue that Combs is not guilty of running a RICO enterprise. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York accuses him of being the kingpin of a RICO enterprise, essentially defined as Mr. Combs himself, and claims the purpose of this faux enterprise is to conduct his personal sex life with his girlfriends. Combs' lawyers also argue a charge can be invalid if it's determined the charging decision was based on race.
Diddy's defense seems to be gearing up toward his alleged criminal conduct wasn't criminal. It was his personal business of what was going on in his bedrooms or hotels or wherever the freak-offs occurred. So they're saying that count 3 wasn't transportation to engage in prostitution, but was just him using escorts, male escorts at that, to bring in as a third with his girlfriends. Whereas the government's theory of the case is Diddy used force, fraud, and coercion to make his alleged victims have sex against their will in his freak-offs that he recorded for his own pleasure. Now, Diddy pleaded not guilty to all his charges.
The reason Diddy's team is doing this is because they don't have any other option. In most sexual abuse cases, suspects can deny that the assault never took place. Diddy, however, can't do that because tapes exist that show him actually committing the assault. Now, the only thing Diddy can do is either get the charges dismissed or try to claim that everything was consensual.
I think it has to be the defense, the consent, because, look, sometimes you can argue that the sex activity never happened, right? It wasn't me, defense. But this is not your typical sexual assault case. There are a lot of people there, right? There are people that are arranging the sex workers. There are people that are setting up lights and cameras, booking hotel rooms. Obviously, Diddy has a large entourage. So there's a lot of witnesses there, and a lot of this was allegedly recorded. So I think it's going to be very difficult to argue that it wasn't me. So you're going to have to argue that it was consensual. And we've talked about the line that separates trafficking from consensual sex. It's that force, fraud, or coercion. So I fully expect the defense to be, this was all consensual. These are all people who are trying to shake Diddy down for money. This is all extortion. That's why they're pursuing these claims. They're just piling on. But really, this is regret, not rape. And I think that's the defense strategy in this case.
Federal prosecutors from the Southern District of New York have replied to Diddy's motion to dismiss the charges and said that Diddy's other charges prove that Diddy wasn't singled out because of his race. Diddy is being indicted on 3 separate charges, so calling one of them racist while pretending that the other 2 don't exist doesn't make any sense. Diddy is an abuser, and coming after him isn't racist in any way.
And I'm going to start with how they start out in their filing, in their response, writing, quote, offering no more than his say-so, the defendant makes the outrageous and illogical claim that federal prosecutors brought one and only one of the 3 charges against him on account of his race. Tellingly, the motion fails to mention that the other counts of the very same indictment allege that the defendant engaged in horrific and repeated acts of violence and sexual coercion, harming multiple victims over the course of multiple years. That context alone defeats the motion. And the prosecutors argue that race didn't play a factor into the charges that Combs faced, but rather, he's facing these charges because of his, quote, own violent, abusive, and criminal conduct. And what is that conduct? Let's get a little more specific here, because what makes up the racketeering conspiracy charge, the sex trafficking charge, the prostitution charge? Well, the allegation is that Combs engaged in a pattern of abusing women, verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually, for years. And that included transporting women and commercial sex workers and coercing and forcing women to participate in sex acts for his own desire, that he would use drugs or threats or power to get them to do this, to get them to do what he wanted. And how did he carry all this out? Allegedly using his power, his resources, his business empire to carry all of this out, and his practices are violations of federal laws. So in other words, the government here explains that count 3, the count at issue, that transporting of people for purposes of prostitution, is exactly what makes up the core of this case.
Interestingly, the only black lawyer on Diddy's legal team, Anthony Rico, actually quit right after filing this motion. There are reports that Anthony Rico disagreed with the approach of just making everything about race, and after seeing the evidence against Diddy, decided it was better to just step away. Winning this case would have skyrocketed Anthony's career, and so for him to quit means that he realized that there was no way for Diddy to win.
He's doing fine. It's a difficult circumstance. He's making the best of the situation.
A situation one of Diddy's attorneys won't be part of moving forward. Anthony Rico announcing in court docs, under no circumstances can he continue defending the embattled rapper.
This is a serious proceeding with serious consequences, and all of us are addressing it accordingly.
In a motion filed on Thursday, Rico stopped short of revealing why he's stepping down from Diddy's legal team, just months ahead of the music mogul's scheduled trial date in May for sex trafficking and racketeering charges, all of which Diddy's denied.
You know, Dr. King called it the law of unintended consequences. So sometimes the more you push a person down, the stronger they get.
That's Rico speaking up late last year for his now former client. ET's learned the attorney's exit will not affect Diddy's other attorneys, nor their defense strategy.
I told Mr. Combs I'm going to try and get his case to trial as quickly as possible. He has been ready to defend this case since he first found out about this case. Nothing has changed from his perspective.
You're going to hear about my party. They're going to be shutting them down. They're going to probably be arresting me.
After Diddy was arrested, Rico said he provided a high level of legal representation. But now, for reasons unknown, he can under no circumstances effectively serve in the upcoming trial.
Nobody's okay with staying in jail for now.
And high-profile death penalty attorney Anthony Rico. Now, while the pair joined around the same time, Anthony in a court filing on Friday said he's leaving the case. In the filing, Anthony Rico said, quote, "For the reasons set forth below, this motion for withdrawals is filed so that Sean Combs may move forward with his defense and to commence jury selection and trial without any delay. As a result of discussion with lead counsel Mark Agnifilo, this motion for withdrawal of counsel is filed. While I am aware that the local rule requires that an application for withdrawal of counsel is supported and granted, there are sufficient reasons related to protections afforded by the attorney-client privilege for brevity in my application for withdrawal as counsel in this case. Although I have provided Sean Combs with the high level of legal representation expected by the court, under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs," end quote. Now, essentially in legalese, I quit, but I can't go into details because of attorney-client privilege. According to the filing, though, the defense shakeup won't delay the case. Diddy will continue with 5 attorneys. That's Mark Agnifilo, Tenny Garagos, Alexandra Shapiro, Jason A. Driscoll, and Anna Estevan.
Anthony Rico was one of the biggest names on Diddy's side, and for him to quit just 2 months before Diddy's trial is extremely suspicious. What did he see that made him quit? And is the evidence against Diddy really that horrible? Winning this case would have skyrocketed Anthony's career, and so for him to quit means that he realized that there was no way for Diddy to win. Industry insiders, including Stephen Smith and Joe Budden, have given their thoughts on Diddy's lawyer quitting, and no one thinks this is a good sign.
It's very, very important that we do that. An attorney walking away, sometimes it's because they don't get the lead chair or one of the lead chairs. Sometimes it's because a client is lying. Sometimes it's because they believe wholeheartedly that the client is going to be guilty and they don't want to be associated with that guilt because that's a loss on their record. It could be a variety of things, but the fact that we are speculating about that when the trial date hasn't even started yet concerns me, because I'm one of those people, ladies and gentlemen, who firmly believes it's virtually impossible to find a jury that's not contaminated by some kind of information that's been put out to the public before a trial begins. I'm not one of those that believes that. May 5th is May 5th. I mean, come on now. That's more than 2 months away. Jury ain't been selected yet. You trying to tell me nobody that's on the jury will have heard that a lawyer backed out of the case? I don't know about y'all, but I find that that's not a good thing for Sean Diddy Combs.
That being said, kind of going back to what potentially the reasoning might be, do you think that it might have been a personal conflict between Diddy and Anthony Rico, or do you think it might have been Anthony Rico with other counsel? But what do you make of all of that?
Potentially, it could be a conflict with the client, right? A disagreement. They just don't get along. The communication is poor. They don't agree on defense strategy. It could be a conflict with one of the other lawyers. Obviously, it seems like Agnifilo is the lead on this case, although Rico was certainly, his 1B. And I know obviously there's other lawyers on the case. Obviously, a lot of the victims are female. They're going to want female lawyers on the defense team, especially during some of the aggressive cross-examination. That tends to be the conventional wisdom when you're dealing with victims who are alleged victims of assault or abuse. And then it could be a conflict with one of the victims themselves. Maybe maybe Rico consulted with them or even represented them in such a way that he has to get off the case. So
just 2 days ago, an updated indictment against Diddy was filed, and it revealed 2 more celebrities that have been involved with Diddy in the alleged abuse of a woman. Allegedly, Diddy raped a woman as payback after she said that Diddy was involved in putting out the hit. Bobrisky has replied to the allegations with a post on X, saying that, "This allegation is a fabricated lie. I wasn't a public figure in 2018. I was broke living with my mom, without any connections to the entertainment industry at the time of this allegation, so the inclusion of my name is truly outlandish. My heart breaks for actual victims of abuse, but I'm fully confident that the evidence will expose this falsehood and the individuals who are maliciously trying to game the legal system to peddle false narratives."
Just all get while
Were you at any of the Diddy parties, or did you miss that?
What the where did that come from? How did that, of all questions,
Wait, did you miss that train?
How did that go?
That train might have left the
that
station,
train took
but
off
you
from
were
the
right
station.
there.
Yeah,
You were
that train,
right there to
that
get on
train
that.
took off from the station for sure.
You were close.
Yeah. I wasn't at that train station.
You left early? You left early?
No, that was down the street from me. I wasn't there. No.
Did you ever meet Diddy?
Yo, what the
Bro, I forgot you
He's
actually
like,
might have.
I've seen pictures with you there.
Sources close to Diddy are coming out against him, and things literally cannot get worse for Diddy. Diddy's executive assistant, Philip Pines, is now speaking out against him in a new documentary. Pines was Diddy's personal assistant for 4 years, and he helped Diddy arrange Wild King Nights. These were events where Diddy would sexually abuse men, women, and minors for days on end and force everyone to call him the king. In his lawsuit, Pines describes how one time Diddy forced him to have sex with a prostitute to prove his loyalty.
A former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs speaking out in a new interview with new allegations about wild parties and drug use. Eva Pilgrim is here with the story. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, Michael. At this point, we've all probably heard about these infamous parties. Diddy's assistant now giving us details about what he says were called Wild King Nights.
It's official. I survived what I've been through.
This morning, new details allegedly inside Diddy's world before his shocking arrest. The entertainment mogul now behind bars for federal trafficking and racketeering charges.
It was a circus. He did whatever he wanted, and we were just at his disposal.
Phil Pines was Diddy's senior executive assistant from 2019 to 2021. He says his then boss asked him to purchase supplies for parties dubbed Wild King Nights.
We usually had a laundry list of items that included lights, alcohol, marijuana, ketamine, Molly. Those requests started to become more frequent.
Pines claims many of these parties involved younger women.
A lot of times you'd have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations too.
Yes. One of the things is, the thing that stuck out to me, you mentioned it before, these allegations are so consistent with what the allegations are that are laid out by prosecutors when they describe the freak-offs in their indictment, right? These fueled parties, these drug-fueled parties, the baby oil, the Astroglide, and it makes me wonder, A, do you think Mr. Pines is a cooperating witness for the government? B, if so, do you think he was one of the people that they originally spoke to when they were coming up with this, when they were drafting the indictment and coming up with the charges? Or do you think he's come out after? Because again, I think the timing of the lawsuit's important too, at the end of the year, right now. Talk to me about what you think his role might be.
If I had to guess, I would figure that the feds already talked to him, just because I know from my experience dealing with them how all-encompassing their investigations are. And if he really was his executive assistant from the time frame that they allege in the lawsuit, I can't see a scenario where they wouldn't. They investigate regular cases to the point that that I'm shocked when I see it as a criminal defense attorney with regular people. When you're talking about a high-profile celebrity case like this, I can't fathom that no one spoke to this individual prior to this. So I would think that they did speak to him, and I can't imagine that he's not a witness.
If the people who actually worked with Diddy and helped him commit the crimes he's accused of are against him, how is Diddy going to deny that these events never happened? Pines came with receipts and text messages from Diddy to confirm what he is claiming.
Now to Sean Diddy Combs, looking to suppress evidence in his federal trial. Senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky is back with the story. Good morning again, Aaron.
And to you, Michael. You'll remember federal agents from Homeland Security Investigations were hardly shy when they raided Sean Combs' opulent homes in Los Angeles and Miami, guns drawn. The jailed music mogul now argues those searches and other searches of his iCloud accounts, electronic devices, and New York City hotel room following his arrest were unconstitutional. His lawyers argue evidence obtained through those searches must be suppressed. Diddy's lawyers say the government presented a grossly distorted picture of reality when applying for the search warrants, omitting certain facts and including salacious details from an unnamed producer that were never credible. Combs has pleaded not guilty to racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and prostitution charges. The defense is also arguing here his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, was a willing participant in drug-fueled sex performances called freak-offs, not coerced as prosecutors allege.
Diddy knows that he can't win the right away, so he has started going after the people coming after him instead. Almost a dozen witnesses and sources close to Diddy testified against him in a recent documentary. 50 Cent is also coming up with a series that will allegedly reveal new evidence. To stop this evidence from coming out, Diddy has filed a lawsuit against NBC News for $100 million. Diddy thinks this will scare away 50 and the people he's working with.
Sean Diddy Combs sues NBC for $100 million over its Peacock documentary about him. According to docs obtained by E! News February 12th, the Bad Boy Records founder filed a lawsuit against NBC Universal seeking $100 million after Peacock, the streaming service owned by the media company, released the documentary Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy. In the filing, Combs, who is currently in jail on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, accuses NBC Universal of defamation and alleged that the company maliciously and recklessly broadcast the documentary, which included claims that the rapper committed crimes like serial murder and sexual assault of minors without having a shred of evidence. The filing reads, in making and broadcasting these falsehoods, among others, defendants seek only to capitalize on the public's appetite for scandal without any regard for the truth and at the expense of Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial.
Diddy is also spreading rumors about the lawyers coming after him. Diddy is trying to get Tony Busby, the lawyer bringing most of the cases against him, disbarred. If Busby gets disbarred, then most of the cases that he's bringing against Diddy will go down with him. So far, Diddy has only been able to spread lies, but who knows what strings Diddy is pulling behind the scenes.
When all of a sudden she was escorted away to a separate room by a security guard who simply allegedly said to her, "You know what you're here for." He allegedly locked the door and left her and her friend inside with Sean Combs. And according to her, Sean Combs allegedly forced McCrary's friend to perform oral sex on him, or else he would have them both killed. That's a threat that he allegedly made. And when it came to McCrary, here is what the complaint reads, quote, Combs soon turned his sights to Miss McCrary and forced her to take her clothes off, again under the threat of violence. Once she was undressed, Combs forced himself on her and began to sexually assault her. Combs fondled, molested, and ultimately raped Miss McCrary, all while she was begging him to stop. Soon, and likely due to Miss McCrary's cries, the door opened and the security guard from earlier came in to ask if everything was all right. Miss McCrary's friend took the opportunity to rush out of the recently locked door. Miss McCrary, however, could not move as Mr. Combs was still on top of her. Combs got off Miss McCrary to talk to the security guard. He left the room but told Miss McCrary to stay, otherwise she would be killed. After about half an hour of sitting in the dark room by herself, another security guard came and told her that she could leave. Miss McCrary gathered her things and left immediately and called a taxi back to her dormitory in downtown Brooklyn.
Prosecutors already know that Diddy is trying to contact witnesses and bribe them. Jay-Z's legal team did this too and was offering each witness $10,000 to step away. In Jay-Z's case, this actually worked, and the case got dismissed. Diddy's victims, however, can't step away even if they wanted to. Criminal cases are pursued by the state, and the victims are just witnesses being subpoenaed. It doesn't matter if they don't want to testify, they are still legally required to do so.
The latest on Sean Diddy Combs, prosecutors are accusing Combs of trying to contact prospective witnesses and obstruct the case against him. Our senior investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky, is here with more on that. Good morning to you, Aaron.
Good morning, Robin. Sean Combs going to be asking a judge this week to release him on bail, but prosecutors now say the argument for detention has only gotten stronger. This morning, federal prosecutors are accusing Sean Diddy Combs of escalating his attempts to influence the jury pool and subvert his criminal case. Almost immediately after arriving at the federal jail in Brooklyn, prosecutors say Combs started using telephone accounts of at least 8 other inmates to call people not on his approved contact list. Prosecutors allege Combs frequently instructs family members and his attorneys to add other individuals via three-way call, which is not allowed. On some of those calls, prosecutors say Combs is explicit about his intention to use public statements to sway potential jurors, including this Instagram post by Diddy's kids.
Happy birthday to Daddy.
Prosecutors say Combs enlisted family members to plan and execute a social media campaign around the defendant's birthday, the first time we heard his voice from behind bars.
Thank y'all for being strong and thank y'all for being by my side and supporting me. I love y'all. I got the best family in the world.
Prosecutors say Combs then monitored audience engagement from the video.
He called the other group member Gunn 58 times trying to get her to stop the lawsuit against Diddy.
She ain't the only one he was trying to get in contact with. You understand? He sent somebody through somebody else to try to get in contact with me, telling me enough is enough. Oh, okay. You tell Big Mama that enough is enough. You can't tell Wolf Mama enough is enough. You tell D Ferg Mama enough is enough. You understand? You tell all those people who supported you and they survivors, enough is enough.
You didn't tell me about that. So he tried to get somebody to reach out to you?
No, I got a phone call from Kirk Burroughs. And Kirk Burroughs, and I ain't gonna get this guy no play. Not Kirk Burroughs, But one of the Puff dudes that I know that's real close to him said, Kirk told me, yo, he want to reach out to you, Gene. He want to speak to you. I said, speak to me for what? What do you want to speak to me for? If he's trying to speak to me, it's for Puff. Point blank. I know the dude. I know how close he is to Puff. He's been with Puff from day one. So he ain't got nothing to say to me, bro.
Not even prison is enough to stop Diddy from getting his freak on. Allegedly, Diddy is speaking to female inmates at the MDC through a peephole in his cell.
According to our sources, Diddy is not being housed in a solitary cell. And what's more surprising, the sources say he can still get his freak on, so to speak. There is apparently a secret system that inmates on the block all seem to know about, a way to spy on the female inmates who are housed one floor below them. I thought there's no way there could be some way to contact the ladies down below, but tell me how it worked.
It's a dormitory Puff Daddy's in. He's not in cells. So there's a big dorm with a bunch of bunks, and then there's a little room where you go into, and it's like a workout area. But it's not really a yard, you would say. It's just like with gates, like you see right there in the building. And you could literally lay down, and the females are right below you, and you could just yell at them, and they yell back, and basically like you could kind of see them, and they could see you a little bit, but you have to watch out for the guards, obviously. But you can talk with them and, you know, show each other some things sometimes, which I never did any of that.
So, what do you think? Is Diddy just grasping at straws with this racist prosecution claim? Or does he actually have a case? With his own team turning against him, new allegations piling up, and even prosecutors accusing him of witness tampering, it looks like he's running out of options fast. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates on this wild case.